Hey YouTube, it's Ali from Tech Roulette. Are you on the fence about building your first PC? Are you considering upgrading your current build? Are you debating whether you want to go Intel or AMD? Are you working with a limited budget? Or are you just tired of me asking questions? Well, stick around because this video is for you. Now, before any PC or console fanboys pollute the comment section, I want to let everyone know that this video was made to help people build the best PC for themselves. My advice is for budget builds as well as advanced setups, so stick around and let's chat. The first thing you should consider when building a PC is budget. I'm not going to define a budget per se because everyone's pockets are different. I will share some concepts that have helped me over the years that may be of good use to you while you're building your PC. Keep in mind, the perfect gaming PC is not the one that can do everything. It's the PC that can play everything that you're interested in with a little wiggle room. My first suggestion is to pick a healthy budget. One that's not too cheap, that is unrealistic, but also one that's not going to make you homeless with time. Think about the top 5 to 10 games you like to play or top genres and do a little research. The main question you need to ask yourself is, are these games I like CPU dependent or GPU dependent? Most modern games use both, but generally use the GPU for the most part. Let's check out an example. Let's say we have a $1,000 budget. I suggest you allocate at least 60 to 70% of your budget to your CPU, GPU, and RAM. If you find you're interested in games that are more GPU intensive like Gears of War, Red Dead Redemption 2, Battlefront, Tomb Raider, series like those, you would need to invest a decent amount of the budget to your GPU. If we allocate 70% of our budget to CPU, GPU, and RAM in this example, we're forced to keep that budget under $700 or less. Currently, I have an Intel processor in my PC, but if I were working with this budget, AMD CPUs would definitely be in the picture. They've come a long way, and personally, I have no problem recommending an AMD chip in the budget without hesitation. At this point, I believe it's up to you to do some research on what processor graphics card combo you want within your 70% or less budget. However, in this example, I would recommend a beefy mid-range GPU like an RTX 2060 Super, a Ryzen 5 3600, and 16 gigs of RAM. You can also go with an AMD GPU like a Radeon RX 5700 XT, which is generally slightly cheaper than NVIDIA's offerings with better price performance, as well as some future-proofing. However, NVIDIA cards are generally more stable. I'm not being biased here though. I do believe the average gamer would be happy with either of them. When purchasing an AMD CPU, you get the added bonus of a good CPU cooler included. If your budget's less, you can always shop around for a GTX GPU or a cheaper Radeon processor, but what I said previously still stands. Make sure you do your research and watch reviews about graphics cards that you're interested in, and don't get too wrapped up in the technical aspects like frame rates and overclocking. Great bonuses to consider respectively. What matters more is, can the GPU play the games you like at medium to high settings or better while maintaining a smooth experience. I will not get too much into RAM like I said, but just get 16 gigs of RAM and that's at least 2100 megahertz or better and you'll be happy. RAM's getting cheap. I wouldn't recommend 8 gigs. So what do you do with the other 30 to 35% of the budget? This is where you shop cases, motherboard, CPU cooling if needed, hard drives. You should have at least one SSD in my opinion, operating system, power supply. Ideally you want to find a nice case that has fans included if you're on a budget. However, if you got a little dough to throw, I recommend you invest in some good cooling components like a liquid cooler for your CPU, maybe some Noctua fans, RGB. Speaking of bells and whistles, here's a few tips for those who don't have flexible spending budgets or those who plan on doing more than just gaming on their PC. Think about the use cases you're interested in now or in the future. For example, do you plan on editing videos, doing any Twitch streaming, heavy computational workloads? If I'm speaking your language right now, you should be looking at an i7 processor or a Ryzen 7 processor or better, as well as some high-range GPUs. AMD has taken the crown for multi-threaded workloads as of late. So if you're dealing with programs that rely on multiple threads, then I look at AMD. If you're building a monster gaming PC but don't care about having 16 threads or more, I personally recommend the i7 9600K for single core performance that's more noticeable day to day, as these programs don't usually utilize more than 2 to 3 threads at a time anyways. Due to all the craziness in the world right now, I figured I'd wrap up the video with some tips that would help anyone, regardless of budget, so you can stream, game, and browse efficiently on an everyday build. I can't cover every use case here, but my rule of thumb is to build the PC you want to use next year. That way there aren't too many surprises and limitations you're unprepared for. Remember when I recommended the RTX 2060 Super over its AMD competition? Even though I realized they're both great, there's a method to my madness. To my friends who like to stream games or have interest in there, the newer RTX graphics cards contain the latest version of NVENC, NVIDIA Video Codec. Basically have a separate chip in these GPUs to handle streaming, which frees up computational power for your CPU. In my testing, I'm able to stream using NVENC, while only losing 2 to 3 frames per second on average, which is basically not noticeable. The beauty of this is that those with a budget build can play games at higher ultra settings while streaming in HD without having to worry about bottleneck their CPU. Second tip, don't stress RAM too much. Find a reputable brand like Corsair Vengeance, for example, with 16 gigs of RAM, and that should be more than enough for modern gaming and everyday needs. Lastly, remember what you're building your PC for and build it around that use case. It's very easy to get caught up in wanting features that you will never use. Trust me, I have fallen victim of this many times. The perfect PC is the one that's perfectly catered for you. Be on the lookout for the next episode where I'll show you guys my dream PC and how I built it. Till we meet again, see you next time.